please. Thank you. All right, I think that's enough of that. So let's not let that music continue playing because mostly I am just not in the mood, to tell you the truth. Sometimes human beings, well, they're pretty disappointing. All right, so I'm looking for my paper. All right, here we go. So those of you that were following the Murdoch trial with Alex Murdoch, we learned yesterday that he is going to be in protected custody in the talking about in the prison population, that he will be in a highly restricted area with only approximately 80 rooms, so approximately 80 other prisoners that are restricted to an 8 by 12 room, and even so he'll be away from general population. He will have access to the place that they get their food, like snacks and paper and things like that. But a lot of people were really upset about that, but because they really want him to suffer, but he's gonna suffer. This is a guy that flew around in private jets and lived on ranches that were 1,700 acres, where his guns had their own room. So he's going to be in misery for sure. Now, the way that the murder of Stephen Smith came into play was when all of this was happening with the Alec Murdoch case. Paul, his son, his youngest son, and his wife Maggie had been murdered. They ran across South Carolina in law enforcement division. They had in 2015 had this original case of this kid that was found dead in the middle of the road, only about 6 miles from Moselle, and just within a few, dozen yards away from the church. I think Sandy Way Church is what it was called at the time. And so it's a strange, when you go in and you read the documents, it was strange. It was like Stephen Smith's case was a hot potato and nobody would take it. In fact, even when investigators kind of followed up and said, whoa, what do you mean? No, there's no way this was a hit and run. The sheriff's department refused to take the case file from the hands of the investigator, who was saying, we cannot investigate this as a car accident. We don't have a car. The kid's shoes are on. He didn't get hit by a car. His shoes would not be on him. And he said, you guys need to be investigating this as a homicide. And they just, sheriff's department refused, never even put it in his hand. So it was there was some very unusual behavior surrounding the Stephen Smith case. And ultimately it was determined to be an accident, and that whomever it was that hit him, they just drove off into the night, and that was that. And they put the whole thing to bed. And the mother, Sandy, of course, was devastated, as you would be, as I would be. And so she has pushed and pushed and pushed. And so, this all came to light as the Murdoch investigation really got underway. And the reason that it came to light is not because they were on a witch hunt, but because they had 14 different people come forward that in some way, manner, shape, or form said there, they might have said something like Buster and Steven were friends, or I heard that you should talk to Buster, or I heard you should talk to Paul. Do you know the Murdoch kids? That somehow during this investigation related to Stephen Smith, people around just kept bringing up the Murdoch name. And so it's kind of, they almost felt compelled when Paul and Maggie ended up dead. They almost felt compelled to look at the case again, to kind of step back and go, okay, well, we remember this case. It was strange. Nobody wanted to put their hands on it, literally and figuratively. What happened? And so they actually reopened the case, and it is now an investigation for homicide. So that brings us to this point today. So a lot of people, okay, so they wanted to go and have Stephen's body exhumed. I know this gets confusing or complicated, I suppose, but just bear with me. Originally, the investigators that were on the scene, they said, and they kind of argued with the medical examiner in the coming days, they said that it looked like Stephen Smith had a bullet wound, that he was shot in the jaw, in the head. And then a little while went by, and the medical examiner who we saw during Alec Murdaugh's trial, she actually testified in trial and did not do very well at all, in my opinion. She got really angry and flustered, and it got very uncomfortable for a little while. But she said, no, that is not a gunshot wound. Something, maybe the rear view mirror on a truck hit him. And that's why he doesn't have any bruises anywhere on his body. That's why he doesn't have any abrasions. Only place that got hit was his head. And when I say his head was hit, it was devastated. His head was devastated. So I'm only using this is just my opinion. And in no way would I ever assume that it's the right one. I'm just trying to think, what could they be looking for by exhuming the body? What is it that they could be looking for? Like we know with Tammy Daybell, one of the things that they wanted to know about was substances in her body, the condition of her lungs, were there blood clots, or did it appear that she suffocated? So I was thinking with Stephen Smith, what could they be looking for? And my brain keeps going back to the supposed, he's been shot. They were so certain. They were certain that he had been shot in the head. So his body was exhumed yesterday on March the 31st. And this was made possible by donations of you guys and other people that went to the GoFundMe and donated money. And there is now enough money for his body being exhumed, the investigation, and money to pay the attorneys. I mean, people have been really invested in what happened to Stephen Smith and Sandy as a mother. And she really is receiving good support from all, the general public, those people that don't know her personally, but we're really interested in making sure that Stephen's story is told and that it is told accurately. And if someone should be, if he was shot or he was intentionally killed, then supporting anyone that can figure out who did it is absolutely it's a really good thing to do. So a lot of donations have come in, and those donations make it possible for Sandy to continue with this investigation. And I have heard some people say, well, why is she paying for it, the autopsy and whatnot? Well, we talked about the medical examiner before. It was also the medical examiner that did Paul and Maggie's autopsies. I'm going to side with Sandy Smith. Given the whole history of all of this, I think I would want an independent investigator and medical doctor. I would want independent, away from the long arm of South Carolina law, and get truth, right? I find it hard to believe that she could find faith in the powers that be, whether it's South Carolina Law Enforcement Division or, the state in general, because the medical examiner works for the state. But anyway, so he has been exhumed. That was yesterday, and so I guess they'll have him for a few days. And the headstone is sad. It looks very lonely in that it's out of place. It's been disturbed. It's no longer this peaceful kind of site. So it's a bit sad. So the GoFundMe was set up in early March, and within 2 weeks, they had more than enough money to exhume his body. And then another week or two, there was enough money to pay for the attorneys and all of the investigation that they needed. And I don't remember. I think the last time I looked, maybe it was over 100,000, if I remember correctly. So, thank everybody for that, and give yourself a pat on the back, because this is definitely a good deed, in my opinion. So, so his attorney, he's using the law firm. It's either Bland and Richter or Richter and Bland. I apologize. I'm not sure whose name goes first, but both of these attorneys are assisting in this case for Stephen to get a proper investigation. There was some the case file has been released, and I've already done a couple of videos with documents and information from case file, and I'll continue to do those. But it just stands out, this whole issue of a gunshot wound to the head. It's identified he gets run over, and yet there's no torn clothes, there's no bits of broken glass, none of the things that you would expect in a collision. Even a collision where a car hits a human, you still get these bits of broken pieces of the car, fiberglass or glass or whatever, and then paint chips also, can. And there was just none of that. The road was pristine. The ditches along each side of the road, nothing there. It just didn't. They just didn't believe. They couldn't see how it was even remotely possible that this kid had been hit by a truck or a car. He had the big ones where his shoes were still on his feet. There were no abrasions or bruises. And then another big one was that his phone was in his pocket. So the cell phone and his car keys being in his pocket was a really big deal. They initially, they took the phone. They couldn't open the phone. They took the phone to the mother, Sandy, because when they called her to say, we can't get the phone open, do you know what some possible passwords would be? She said, well, my fingerprint is the secondary print to open the phone. When they went out there to get her to open the phone, her print had been erased, so she was no longer able to get into his phone. At this point in time, at this point in the investigation, this was all happening in 2015. We're now 8 years later, and so the technology around this type of investigation has improved dramatically. And right now, they do have his phone unlocked, and the phone is being investigated by SLED, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. the attorneys, the exact quote is, I think Stephen's cell phone is a really big deal in this case. First of all, the phone was on his person. He walked 3 miles at 4 a.m. on a dark country road with his cell phone in his pocket the entire time. And he never made an attempt to call his sister, who was nearby, nor to text a friend. That is a very fascinating fact, said Richter. His own car, Stephen's own car, was found 4 miles from his body. The doors were locked, but the gas tank was open and the wallet was still inside the car. It was as if somebody drove the car there and kind of did a setup. And I heard somebody say, but why, Jules, is the gas tank open? Like, why is that suspicious? I think that's suspicious because I think the implication would be that he ran out of gas. There was no gas in the gas tank. It was on empty. But why would it be open? Did somebody siphon the gas out onto the ground so that there would be this storyline? Oh, look, he ran out of gas. He got out. He started walking to go to town, and that's when he got run over. So it is very odd that the gas tank would be open in the the top off. So they've interviewed dozens of people in 2015, and they're interviewing again now, in this 2023. And one of the things that was said was right is right, wrong is wrong. I feel for this family, and the family definitely deserves the truth. I cannot imagine losing my brother or my parents, but especially losing them like this. So, if you're a regular person in my channel, we talked about the boyfriend, Mark Bickert, who they were broken up at the time that this happened, but they were in contact. And so he had actually spoken, Mark Bickert had actually spoken to Stephen Smith that morning before he went missing at 3:30 in the morning. Let's see. Bickert claims that Stephen Smith said that okay. So here's Bickert's story. I want to make sure I'm not saying this incorrectly. Okay. Bickert claims that he had spoken to Stephen, and Stephen said that he was about to run out of gas. And then later he talked to Stephen again, and Mark Bickert asked Stephen if he was walking. And the cop said, "You asked him?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I asked him because on an earlier call, he said that he was about to run out of gas. And I guess he thought he sounded like funny, like he was walking." He said, "I could hear cars going by, but his answer to me was no, that he was not walking." And then the call dropped. He said he tried to get him back and he couldn't get him. And that's what I was saying. And so then Bickert is trying to tell the police, well, I was trying to tell him I couldn't come and get him because I don't have enough gas. I didn't have any gas. He said that like 3 times. So there's a ton of people. They're really caught up in the idea that Buster Murdaugh is connected to the death of Stephen Smith. But we really haven't heard too much about Mark Bickert, the boyfriend, until just like 2 weeks ago when the file dropped, the case file. I know there were a lot of people that are in kind of my circle on Twitter that were just like, "Oh my God, Stephen Smith had a boyfriend. How is it possible? We never have heard this before. How is that possible?" So this unusual conversation about the gasoline, that he's on the phone with Stephen, and Stephen is like, "No, I'm not walking," and yet he claims he could hear cars going by. And then he offers like 3 different times, well, I couldn't go pick him up because I didn't have any gas in my car either. It's very, very uncomfortable set of circumstances. Now, there have been 2 people. I don't know. It's very strange to me, but there have been 2 people whose names have been released, talked about, that are people of interest. And neither name is Murdoch. Neither one. But they are young people that are the same age as Buster and what Stephen Smith was. They are the same age group. And at least one of them is actually talked about in a documentary, naming him as a very close friend to Buster. So even though it's not the Murdoch name, they've named 2 people of interest. It's still that friendship group, that same age group, as what Stephen Smith was. So it's a sad. Now, Mark Bickert is much older than them. It's different with Mark Bickert, but his was not one of the names that was implicated in what happened to Stephen. So I heard no gunshot. Yeah, Emily, welcome. Thank you for being here. Hey, Elizabeth, thank you for being here. Hey, Bling. Hi, Diane. Hi, Seagate. Southern Sleuth, nice to meet you. Hey, Cinnamon and Diane, welcome. Yeah, so initially the investigators really felt like they believed that it was a gunshot, Emily. Like they believed it. When it came out that the medical examiner said no gunshot, these investigators were really they were really surprised that like what Proctor and then the other guy, Tommy, is it Mason? Was it Tommy Mason? They were so surprised that they actually made a trip to go question the medical examiner, saying, gosh, are you sure? Like, how do you explain the fact that his shoes were on? And there was a lot of damage to his head, but we don't get any bruising on his body. There's nothing anywhere nearby between him and his car that indicate there was a collision of any sort. Hi, Sammy. How are you? How do you explain that? Hey, Jennifer Lawton. How do you explain that? Right? So I get it. In some ways, as complicated and strange and unusual as Lori Vallow's case is, this thing with Stephen Smith seems equally as unusual. You feel like there's such a big piece of the story missing. I think that's what makes it feel it's confusing. How do you go from tested police officers, investigators that are used to working traffic accidents? They're used to it, and they live in a part of the country where everyone hunts, right? They know what a gunshot wound looks like. How do you make that clear in your mind? How does it rest comfortably, this idea that these seasoned accident investigators, they see this kid and they're like, wow, he looks like he's been shot in the head and left here, right? That it happened somewhere else and he was brought here. And then a couple of weeks later, the medical examiner comes up and says, oh, surprise, I think it was a car accident. And when Proctor questioned her and said, okay, well, could you explain what about this makes you think that, this is a pedestrian motor vehicle accident and he got hit? Here's her answer. Here's the actual answer. Quotation marks. Was in the road. That's what she said. I thought, but you're the medical examiner. There's a there's a lot more to look at than the location that his body was discovered. In fact, most investigators will tell you that they consider a lot of different places. They consider where the person lives. Do they have a crime scene that looks like the crime occurred there, or was this just a place to deposit the body and the crime scene happened somewhere else? Like they recognize that could actually happen. And the medical examiner was quite simplistic. It's only my opinion, but the medical examiner was very simplistic in being angry and frustrated with Detective Proctor. And she said, or I'm sorry, I think it's Captain Proctor. She said, he was in the road. That's how I know. That's how I know he's run over. He's in the road. So it's you feel like there's part of the story that is not, it's something wrong with the story. And if you're prone to wild speculation, as I am, I own it. I'm imaginative, and I tend to kind of try to work out different potential thoughts of, how could this thing have happened? It does leave you, it does make you feel that somebody might have been interested in putting the Stephen Smith case to bed quietly. I think that's the most accurate way for me to voice, the way I'm looking at this. It just doesn't, there's something wrong between the accident crime scene investigators looking at it and what it looks like to them in the beginning, and then the results that came back from the medical examiner made the investigators' jaw hit the ground. Why? These were not new cops. These were guys that have been doing this for a long time. And they don't call her a liar. They don't get emotional about it, but they're owning this didn't fit. This didn't work. It just wasn't right. We don't know what happened, but something went wrong, right? Unless it's an older model 55 Chevy with a chrome housing. I used to work supervising manufacturing of rear view exterior mirrors. I can't imagine any of them having a sharp enough housing to mimic a gunshot either. Thank you, Emily. Yeah. Hurt Locker, right? You hate to say that. You really hate to kind of go down that road, but it's really worrisome. Now, somebody else said, was it Shalimar? Somebody said that about Randy Murdoch. No, Bling. Randy Murdoch, who is Alec's older brother, he's kind of like the patriarch, I guess, of the family now that the dad has passed away. Randy Murdoch jumped up and immediately, before anything was done, said, "Oh, no, don't worry. We'll take care of this. I'm here to help. Our law firm will be here to help you." That also is a little bit uncomfortable. However, here, I'll tell you why it's uncomfortable for me. I'm sure you're thinking the same thing, Blaine. We were led to believe, well, actually, Alec Murdoch told us point blank that he was the only one involved in the fraud and the crime, stealing people's settlements, the graft and corruption around the settlement money and the lawsuits, that he was the only one involved. Y'all remember that? When he was on the stand, he explicitly said, no. Lafitte, who was president of the Palmetto State Bank, no, he had nothing to do with it. So, and Lafitte is serving time right now for some of this, what did they call it? I can't remember what his charges were, but it was basically something like mishandling the bank money, right? So So when Murdoch went up on the stand and he just said nobody else knew, it's hard to believe, isn't it? I know Emily followed this pretty close. It's a little hard to believe that everybody looked the other way and this joker is $300,000 overdrawn, right? Oh, I'll get that caught up tomorrow, right? Like everybody's got that kind of cash. There were some really uncomfortable agreements that had to be in place in order for these crimes of stealing settlements, putting them in escrow accounts, writing a new check, depositing it in another bank account. And this goes on for 15, 20 years, and nobody stops to go, wait a minute, where's all this money coming from? That's hard to believe. That's right, Big Ups. That is very hard to believe. But that's what he said. The good old boy system has a name because it works. It's been around a long time, right? And maybe perhaps part of the good old boy system was, if one of us gets caught, we own it. We don't turn on the others. And he got up on the stand and he flat out said no one else knew. Lafitte didn't know. All of his friends, nobody knew. That's what he claimed. So how, well, Chris, his best friend, you want to believe him because he's a really likable fellow. But it just is not, it doesn't make sense. You want to say, wait a minute, you're a professional. You're licensing, your professional reputation, everything is on the line. You're telling a story that is very, very hard to believe, right? So that's one of the things that bothers me too about the Stephen Smith case is you're talking about a family that seemed to get away with an awful lot because there were cops and apparently presidents of banks and investment groups that were all willing to help cover his back. Well, if they're willing to cover millions upon millions of stolen money, why wouldn't they help cover up, something bad going wrong with the kids? They wanted to cover up that boat wreck. Can we agree on that? And Paul's girlfriend, she said, was recorded, put on a movie. She said that she and Paul had a wreck. And she went to call 911, and Paul ended up calling the grandfather, not Alec, but Alec's dad. And then Maggie and Alec drive all the way out there to pull his truck out of the ditch, and they're yelling at her. They're mad at her, saying, oh, you could have gotten him in trouble. Don't call 911. You call one of us. We'll take care of it. So why wouldn't they have covered up this poor kid in the middle of the road? So I'm not convinced, I'm not saying, I'm not even speculating that Buster has anything to do with this. In fact, I'm less convinced at this point. I'm less convinced today that somehow the Murdochs were involved because we got Mark Bickert. We got Mark Bickert, and he's given a very unusual tale. He's given a strange story that is a little hard to swallow. But now we also have attorneys coming out. There's now 2 other boys whose names have been named. It's out. And neither one of them is a Murdoch. So it's very, hey, Zelda, thank you for your live while ago. I stand by everything you said, Zelda. Everything you said, you're dead on correct. And it was wonderful to see Larry, and he was reading, and it was good. All right. So this is a really interesting case, and I think, I don't think it's going to quietly go away. I really think they have a problem that didn't just get solved with Murdoch going to prison for the rest of his life. I think the good old boys are still out there, and they may be in trouble, right, Venus Gal? Venus Gal says, good old boys to the extreme. I will guarantee there are others who will never be held responsible and whose names we will never hear, right? It really makes you wonder. It really makes you wonder how all that money that was, they were basically playing that. What is that? The shell game, right? It's like they were playing the shell game, and you had these really powerful men, investors and bank presidents. You had these really powerful men, and they were just sort of scooting this money around, hiding it. Oh, no, I'm the one, I'm responsible here. Call my best friend. He is a great guy. He's going to help you out. We're going to put him in charge. And it, even Gloria Satterfield's son, he was on the stand and he talked about how confusing it was, because he was misled. He thought that Alec was doing his lawsuit, but really it was Alec's friend. And then he was told that as part of the settlement, he had to sign over the care of the funds to another guy. And it was just like shell games, right? He trying to keep up with where the money was and how much it was supposed to be. And how long was that going on? And it seemed like to me, at least the people they named, it always seemed like the families they named were people that maybe didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a high income. Maybe they didn't have a lot of education. Like maybe they targeted these people specifically, saying, oh, we'll be able to trick them. We'll shell out a little bit of money as we go, and they'll never get suspicious, and we'll be rolling in all the cash. That is a very cynical point of view on my part. I know it is. But after what we heard in testimony during that trial, oh my gosh, it was really something. Seagate, thank you. You are a sweetheart. I appreciate that. I don't get very many super chats, so I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. It's a good Saturday. All right. Thimble rig, an old Army game. Great weather. Oh, yeah. I was reading earlier, something like 18 people got killed yesterday in the storms. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. It was odd that Alec Murdaugh could have prevented Maggie from being part of the lawsuit with the boat accident, but didn't. What do you think that was about, Boo? Thank you, Seagate. Thank you so much. Taking advantage of tragedy. I hate it so bad. Yeah, so this case with Alec Murdaugh, as you really kind of opened your mind up to the enormity of what all took place, it was almost obscene what they did with the money. It was obscene that they were finding people who were harmed badly, going through the motions and getting these settlements, and then giving a little bit to the person going, well, sorry, man, wish I could have got you more. And then they pocket it. It's as obscene as it can get. It's nauseating. Quizzical state of mind. Thank you so much. You are a sweetheart. Emily, thank you. You've been a good friend for a long time. I appreciate you. Thank you. So, Boo, thank you so much. Y'all are really sweet. Y'all, thank you. Thank you. I will tell you this. I'm not very comfortable with people saying, oh, you do this good or you do that. It makes me embarrassed. And then I don't know why, but so does the super chats and stuff. Not embarrassed, but I'm really grateful. And I guess I don't know if I'm expressing it, to really show that I appreciate the support. I really do. Sometimes we find ourselves in, sometimes we find ourselves at a crossroads, and can be hard. So thank you. I appreciate it. Poor folks in Mississippi and Little Rock. Yeah, it was terrifying. That monster that went over Little Rock, I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine having been there. It's your worst nightmare. If you grow up, if you live in that part of the country, that tornado alley, that's the one that you're always afraid of. The one that while you're hiding in the closet or the bathroom or whatever, in your mind, that's what you see. What we saw going across Little Rock yesterday. That was the big one. Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much. It's very hard to know what the right thing is sometimes. So thank you. All right. I appreciate being able to come into a chat without it being all the crazy drama. Thank you, Boo. I am with you. Gosh. Yes. It's too sad. It's sad. The drama is devastating. It's sad. It's awful. Okay. Thank you, Cinnamon. So that is great news. I was just thrilled to death to see that they had finished, gotten the body out and everything yesterday. Oh, is Piddle and Bill here? We are in no drama land here. That's right. So I was glad that Sandy, but you got to think too, I'm sure as big of a step forward as this will have been for her in terms of the investigation, that it's heartbreaking for her. Last night and today have been very difficult for her. So, if you're a believer, then maybe some thoughts and good wishes for Sandy Smith, because I cannot imagine the complicated pain of what she's having to do right now. Nobody wants to have their loved one's body exhumed. Absolutely no one. But at the same time, she is entitled to know what happened to her child. Yeah. I'm going to tell y'all, I keep on telling Bill that we need to do a talk show and call it PB&J Crime Time. He won't do it. He wants to talk and cook, but I don't cook. He cooks. Ooh, Stir in the Pot. That's actually a great name for a podcast. Stir in the Pot. Okay. Hey, Diamond Paw, how are you? We got lucky in Alabama overnight. Only one tornado on the ground and no lives. Wonderful, Boo. Very nice. Mandy Matney has a podcast that tells that Handsome the Third told Alex that you take care of Paul or I will. Pam, welcome, by the way. Hey, Tennessee. I have heard that statement being attributed to him. And I don't know. I mean, I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but I do feel like I've kind of kept up with everything and I've read as much evidence as I think is out there related to the Murdochs. But I don't know where this information came from about Handsome. Does she say? And maybe maybe my ADHD kicked in that moment and I just didn't hear it. Or do we know how someone knows that? That was the other one, Seagate. They said because their GoFundMe had done so well, not only did they have enough money to exhume the body of Stephen Smith, but that they were talking to Gloria Satterfield's son, and that he also, they want to, I'm going to tell y'all this. This shocked me. My jaw hit the ground. Get ready. This blew me away. Gloria Satterfield had 12 broken ribs. Did y'all know that? Put a 1 if you knew that. I had no idea. I knew she had a head injury, and I thought that was ultimately what killed her, was the swelling, in the brain. Did y'all know that she had 12 broken ribs? Cindy said that she knew. I have heard that, but it just seemed to come up with no source to confirm it. Same boat here. Don't give credence until verified. Yeah, I didn't either, Venus Gal in Tennessee. Me neither. Seagate, I had no idea. No idea. 12 broken ribs. Now, here's the part that is, just hang on to your chair because I don't want anybody to fall out on the floor when I say this. They did not complete an autopsy on Gloria Satterfield. Yeah, see, I just heard about 12 of you guys just fell out on the ground. 12 broken bones, head injury. They did not complete an autopsy on Gloria Satterfield. Is that the craziest thing that you've ever heard? Boo. So that to me, I mean, I know it's important with the gun, my opinion, the gun, potential gunshot wound or not, kind of get that ruled out for Stephen Smith. But man, they got to exhume Gloria Satterfield because nobody did an investigation on her body. They went with the story. Oh yeah, she fell. The dog tripped her. But there are 7 steps. If we go to the very worst case, I'm sure it is, Emily. So the house, the Moselle house, that was a very, how do I want to say this? That was a very common or desirable house plan. With the porch and that center stairway, kind of very regal and grand, going up to the porch that either fully wrap around or three-quarter wrap around. My mom and dad have that. That's what their house looks like. So you got to realize you're only going up. Well, I guess on my mom and dad's house, it's 4 feet. I think it's about 4 feet, maybe 4.5 feet, Bill?
Do what?
From the ground up to mom's porch. Is that about 4 feet?
Straight up and down. Not even 3 feet.
Okay, so he says 3 feet. I'm going to say 4. Just, we'll test both limits. So if you've got 7 steps, those steps are generally pretty deep, right? They're usually about 12, maybe 14 inches deep. And then how high is the riser? The riser is only about 3 or 4 inches. When you walk up those steps up to the front porch, it's not like you're walking upstairs to like go to a whole new level of the house. You're only going up about 3 or 4 feet. So yeah, so Seagate says there were 7 steps, but what you have to think about is what was the differential between the ground and where the landing of the porch is. And, from my mom and dad's house, and Moselle is an exact replica of what my mom's house looks like. It's very, probably would have been built at the same time. So it's only, like I said, 3 to 4 feet that those 7 steps are moving you up. How big are the steps, right? They're very small. So when she fell backwards, it wouldn't have been like falling down stairs that are taking you from the first floor to the second floor. It would have been it'd been actually closer to sort of like a bumpy ramp, really. But even in the worst, let's say the worst case scenario, she's standing and looking at the front door, her back is to the stairs, and someone stands in front of her and pushes her with both hands as hard as they can. That would be the worst case scenario, in my opinion. No way to break your fall at all, right? Could you imagine breaking 12 ribs even like that? I can't. I think you would get some broken bones when you initially hit, but that would just be about it, because remember, each step is only about maybe about 5 inches. So I don't know, something really, even Gloria Satterfield, anyway, so without kind of, going off on girl land, they are talking with the Satterfield family to have her body exhumed and a private autopsy done. And I think that's an absolute great idea. But I mean, nobody asked me, but I'm just saying that's in my own opinion. I wonder if her children would be willing to make her medical records public. I don't know. I know that they're all talking with Bland and Richter. So we'll see how it comes out. But just to know that you had an independent autopsy and it matched, what they said her condition was in the hospital. But I just was blown away. I thought to myself, how in the world does someone fall downstairs, end up with 12 broken ribs and a head injury? How many days did she survive? Did she survive 3 days, a week? What was it? Maybe Mrs. Gloria had osteoporosis. That is a very good point, Deb. Absolutely. Sure. Maybe she heard something in that house she should not have, and she had to go. Maybe Hurt Locker. Here's a question I would have. Who are the airplanes? Who's flying the airplanes that are coming in and out of Moselle? Because they were being flown in and out. It was common for people in the area. Someone was using their private airstrip. Who was it? And what were they carrying? I've seen people say, well, Buster being in Charleston, or I don't even know where they said it. Do we know where they said he was at the night Paul and Maggie were killed? I don't remember what they said. I haven't really looked at his stuff because it was so, he wasn't involved in this. He lost his family. He's grieving. But she survived 10 to 12 days in the hospital. Okay. Yeah. So that's why there was no autopsy, right? Because she had been in the hospital so long before she died. But I would have thought that the police would have approached the hospital and said, hey, there's an investigation because of the circumstances of the death. We need an autopsy. And in that case, they could have done it. So why didn't the sheriff's office go or the state police? Why didn't they go and say, hey, sorry, but we really need to get an investigation because she's got 12 broken ribs. Yeah, she's got 24 ribs and half of them were broken. It's to me, when I was learning about that, I thought, it actually sounds more like Gloria was run over by a car and Stephen Smith fell down the stairs. It's like it's exactly backwards, right? Alex took the umbrella policy only a month before. Oh, wow, Lucy. Hey, Lucy's World. How are you? It's good to see you. Hey, Rochelle. Hi, Sunset Gazing. Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, not good. Hey, Charlie, welcome. Rock Hill with his uncle. Someone asking chat, did they fall happen before or after the boating accident? The fall was well before. Yeah, the fall was, Alec had already stolen Gloria Satterfield's money before Paul and Maggie died. Yeah. You'd think the doctors would have found it peculiar. Of course, absolutely, yeah. But remember, we heard some shocking things during that trial, making most of us go, gosh, how did they get away with that? How did they get away with nobody investigating that? Like, what's that about? How did he keep on having a bank account when he kept getting it overdrawn and not making his payments on time? And it's crazy what he was able to get away with. It's crazy. So, was Gloria ever able to speak to anyone after her fall? She was speaking. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think she was talking like I'm talking right now. I think it was more of like just grunts or sounds. There's a bit of a strange description there's a bit of a strange description where if you listen to the 911 call, Paul says, this is highly suspect to me too. Paul says that he's trying to hold up Gloria, right? He's like, he gives, I don't know why, in my mind, it sounded like he was like holding her up on her feet, that she's standing up, but that she kept falling. So what was he doing? He was getting her up and then letting her go, and she just kept falling down the same set of stairs over and over again. Gloria found Paul's drugs taped underneath his bed. So you are of the opinion, Pam, that it was Paul taking the drugs? I thought Alex was the one taking the drugs. Gloria was unable to speak after she fell. Yeah, Charlie. So when you listen to the 911 call, the way that Paul describes what's going on, he does give this impression that he's holding her up and then he lets her go and she falls, right? And at first she's, I guess groaning would be a good, you kind of can hear a little bit, and then they describe, but then there's nothing. Yeah, and that was a bit surprising, wasn't it? That Alex supposedly went in to do the questioning, gave the account of what happened, because Alex wasn't at home. Wasn't it supposed to be Paul and Gloria at home? I'm sorry, Paul and Maggie were at home with Gloria. But then Alex is the only one that went and gave the statement for what happened. So there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of strange oddities. This is a good thing. I know it's hard on Sandy Smith, and I'm sure that hopefully she's got her friends and family with her today, because exhuming the body, for me at least, I think in some ways it might even be worse than when you first lose them. I'm sure there's a lot of conflicted thoughts and emotions connected to it. But ultimately, she knows that she needs to do this. Like she knows that it's the right thing. But boy, I'm sure she's. I would not want to be in her shoes. I know this is horrible for her. Alex said he got there right before the paramedics. Yeah, but then why is he the only one that gave a statement? Paul and Maggie were the ones that were there. Why didn't they do the statement? So Gloria found Paul's drugs, but Maggie found Alex's drugs. Have y'all seen the videos of Paul? Does he look drunk, or does he look like he's on another kind of drug? Me too, Emily. Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm happy for her, and I'm glad that she's going to get some answers. Oh, but this is so complicated, complicated from a spiritual point of view, the humanity, maybe I'm making too much into it, but I think for me, it would be so hard, so hard. Fitz News and Mandy Matney. Yeah, they have done a great job putting information out there. Paul had a drug problem. Was it the opiates, Pam? I've heard the thing about drugs under the bed and some other things, but where does it stem from? Is it fact or speculation? I have no idea, and I've followed from the start. I wonder if the two suspects that have been named were in the rumored truck with a bat rumor. Yes, Lucy, I had that same idea. So supposedly, hey Zelda. So yeah, definitely Paul liked alcohol, but I think he was using maybe Xanax, maybe opiates, right? He was fairly bizarre when he got drunk. It looks like it was a little more than alcohol to me. Most people fall asleep before they get to that level of intoxication with alcohol. But with opiates or even Xanax, people can talk and they won't remember it. There'll be no memory encoded, but other people, can hear what they're saying. But I think everybody was worried about him. His girlfriend was taking videos of him. People were, trying to physically restrain him from drinking. I mean, this kid had a lot of problems. It's very sad. Oh, he dabbled in ecstasy. Okay. So when they named the two young men that are the same age as Stephen Smith, what went through my mind was this, and I think this is what Lucy might be talking about. If it's wrong, if I'm wrong about this, Lucy, let me know, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. One of the reports that went to the police back in 2015, when you had all these people coming forward and saying, well, have you talked to the Murdochs? Or we heard this about the Murdochs, or we heard that about the Murdochs. One of the stories was this, that Paul and Buster were in the car. It was three other boys, right? Or not a car, but a truck. They were in a truck with three other boys, and they were either leaving a baseball game or going. I guess they must have been coming home from a baseball game. And that they were the ones that did this to Stephen Smith. And the people that reported that, I don't know that they named any individual person, but the fact that they would come forward, well, they did give identifying characteristics to one kid, right? Is that right, Lucy? And they ordered a rape kit. Yes, they ordered a rape kit on Stephen Smith. That was one of the first things that I learned that really made my jaw, hit the ground. Hola, Dr. Latina. Welcome. It has been a long time since I saw you. How are you? I'm glad you're here. Yeah, so they named Buster and Paul, and then these three other kids that were coming home from a baseball game, and then they gave some identifying characteristics based on race for one of the kids, right? And so now we get two names released. They're not Murdoch. That's not the name that's been released. And so, it's strange. So I live in the South, where they say where there's smoke, there's a fire. Sometimes you just got to look for it, but it's got to be there if you can see the smoke. So I think this is going to be, interesting. And I think if I'm not wrong about this, I think they ordered the rape kit. It was within 12 hours of them first arriving on scene, and that nobody ever picked up the report, right? It was never what they processed, I guess. So I ask you again, we all watched the trial. I'm sure that everybody in here watched just about every minute of testimony, right? Have you ever in your entire life heard of a family get so much help from their law enforcement and their doctors and their business owners and their attorneys and their bank? Have you ever seen anybody live that kind of a charmed life? Because I'm going to tell you straight up, I have not. So I don't know. It seems like there was a lot of brushing things under the rug. If there was a Murdoch name attached to it, there was a rug, right? Emily says, Dr. Latina and Jules of Thought, I still appreciate the collaboration you two did a couple of months ago. Thank you, Emily. Appreciate that. I had a great time with Dr. Latina. We did a couple of lives, and then I think we both still work full-time, jobs. And so I think she got busy and I went the other direction, busy, and we just life took over. I think we did those couple of lives, and since then I've been struggling so hard to find time to put up a video, and it's just been work. It's been crazy. So but we definitely got to do it again. And I would be willing to bet that the Lori Vallow case would have a great deal of a great number of topics or points of conversation for a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Don't you think, Dr. Latina? We could probably find something in the trial to talk about. So, yes, busy or busier. In fact, Dr. Latina, one of the things that I was going to talk about later on, I saw where, let's see, Sean Conley and Patrick Wilson is the second person of interest at this time. I see. Yeah. I find it very interesting. There was some kind of, I didn't really stop to pay enough attention, but some kind of controversy about who released the names. Do y'all know anything about that? I know because of my real estate license information that I had to know. Wait a minute. What did you say, Zelda? Oh, standard step up is 8. Yes. The regular rise is 8, but on those steps that are going up to the porch, they are not an 8-inch rise. They're not much thicker than a brick, actually. So there are little tiny little steps as you walk up. It's all ornamental. It's not, it wouldn't look as austere if you didn't have those multiple steps all kind of like right on top of each other. Yeah. But so one thing I was going to talk about, Dr. Latina, there has been buzz in the social sphere, I guess you could say. This Eugenia, what is her last name? I can never remember. Eugenia, not Conley. Oh, shoot. Cooney. Sorry, my poor brain. So there's been some discussion in the social sphere about a recent video that was put up by Eugenia Cooney. And Eugenia is this young woman who, well, your heart breaks when you see her. She is painfully thin, dangerously thin, and you wonder why hasn't she had a heart attack and died? I think she and some of her subscribers, I think they call her Skeleton Girl. Do y'all know who I'm talking about? So she's got like 2 million followers on her YouTube channel. Yet, thank you, Hybrid. Thank you so much. Hey, critters. So there, it's generated a lot of interest because the running storyline is that she has anorexia. Indeed, she does, in fact, look like she probably would have anorexia. But they had done a video, she and her mother, I think about 4 or 5 days ago. She and her mother did a video where they were baking a cake, or they were going to bake a cake, but then the mom accidentally got a box of brownies. And so they ended up making these brownies. And so a lot of people were really kind of confused by it because, it didn't look like Eugenia even knew how to open a box, and the mother seemed unfamiliar. It just seemed, when you watch it, it just seems a bit forced, clumsy, right? And so I was going to take a minute to talk about what is probably happening there. Of course, I don't know because I don't know them, but there's a couple of things that could be going on. One, I don't think that we should assume to know about what this child's or this young woman's medical status is. I definitely get the whole anorexia thing. But if you look up some people that have Marfan syndrome, which is a genetic disorder, they can also look like they are anorexic. And she does, in many ways, she does have very elongated fingers, and she's got some of those, her chest looks a little bit like a Marfan chest. So So there could be other things going on besides anorexic. It could be something else, and we shouldn't really jump to conclusions. However, one thing that I saw, and I'm sure that Dr. Latina would say, I'd love to kind of talk with her about it more. But sometimes your girls, especially if they're very tall and they're in elementary, they're like in third grade or fourth grade or whatever, and they're already very tall, then they can become the target of teasing and not being treated very well, being called names. Why are you so big? Things like that. Well, if it comes at just the right time in terms of this child developmental, stretch, then the girls can get really frightened. And what will they do? They'll stop eating because they're so afraid of how tall they're getting. They recognize maybe they're maturing faster than the other girls in the class, and they don't want to stand out. And in today's world, there are groups of girls that are intentionally using anorexia to stop themselves from going through puberty and having a period, having that secondary weight gain for, the secondary sex characteristics and whatnot. And so it wouldn't be unusual that Eugenia was going to be really tall anyway. And then she got worried about how much taller she was than the other girls. And then that's when all the anorexia stuff set in. And so it's not, I know there is this tendency to want to say, oh, well, Eugenia Cooney must have had a horrible mother. Oh, her parents were just awful to her. Right. I mean, I know that there is that. I get that. I understand, but there's child development is very complicated. It's very difficult, and it is a really intricate set of interactions between the individual's biology, their daily social interactions, attachment and parenting issues, and then just the environment itself. That we know that boys who develop earlier than the rest of the boys, they tend to be more popular. But girls that develop faster than the bigger group of girls in their class, they have a lot more social problems. It's very difficult for them. So we're not only fighting social media and societal expectations for children. They're not just fighting what they know in their mind, but also the betrayal of their body suddenly turning into this adult body, and they don't know what to do with themselves. They want to still be that child that they were, where they were so comfortable physically. And then you've got parents that may be the best parents on the planet. They're devoted to their children. They love their children, but maybe they themselves go through a difficult time. Maybe they get a divorce, or maybe there's nothing wrong in the home at all. And this is just a young woman who's developing earlier, and she gets scared because she's going to be so tall. And so she tries to control it by cutting down on the food. And then, here we are now 15 years later, and now she's got a very difficult situation she's dealing with. That it's a life-threatening disorder that she has. When you look at her, you want to pray, because she looks very ill right now. But the cooking of the cooking of the brownies or the cake, there's something very specific about that I thought would be interesting for you guys to know about. It's actually a tool that is used very often in treatment programs for people that have eating disorders. People that develop anorexia or binge eating problems, they develop a really unhealthy relationship with their food. And some of them, especially anorexia, some of them will even begin to feel as if the food is like poison. So to look at a cake would cause nausea and intense fear. And so part of what they do, now I'll tell you this, and Dr. Latina can tell you this is true. You'll never meet a person who knows more about food, calories, the types of vitamins that are in that food, the nutritional content. You'll never know anything more about food than someone who is battling anorexia. They know everything there is. They have an intimate relationship with the knowledge of food, but the actual practical interaction with food is really, really, really disrupted and, filled with negative emotion, right? And so one of the tools that is very often used in treatment programs for anorexia is cooking classes. It's actually a really good thing. They know all about it in terms of what are the nutrients, what is the calorie content, how do you make lasagna. They can tell you everything. They have like doctorate degrees in nutrition just about. But what they can't do is they can't, pick up a cookie in their hand because they have this intense fear that it's a dangerous substance. So by having cooking classes, creating this fun social environment, and food is secondary, that can go a long way to developing a relaxed relationship with food. Not eating it, you're not trying to force them into consuming it. You just want them to get comfortable being around it, just being comfortable with it in the room. And so I think that's all that was going on. I thought the video was a nice video. I liked seeing the mom and Eugenia smiling and talking. The grandma was there. You didn't see her, but she was there, and they were talking to her. And I thought it was nice. I thought it was good. I was a little confused. I saw some people on Twitter that talked about it a little bit, that it was, that maybe it was contrived, perhaps. Maybe it was designed to create a gossip or an outcry. That is not what it was. I'm certain of that. Y'all can get on the Google and fact check me if you want to. It is a regular part of a treatment program for anorexia and other eating disorders to develop a healthier relationship with food itself, not eating it, but being comfortable being around it, noticing like what the texture is like, putting your hand, like picking up pieces of apple or peeling grapes or mixing macaroni and cheese with your hands, just like you would like finger paint. It's not a bad experience. It's not dirty. There's no germs. And so, no, it was a nice thing that they did. All right. So I hope that, as just a little moment of FYI, nothing related to true crime. But, when I saw it, I thought, well, I might as well talk about it because maybe a lot of people don't know that. So there you have it. All right. We will take you eating. Mel Mac is going to take you out to eat, Doctora Latina. You have a dinner date, girl. Social media is the worst place for people battling mental illness. Aaron Carter comes to mind. Yes, ma'am, hybrid. Absolutely. Listen, I don't mind saying this. Dr. Latina can probably back me up on this. This whole social media content creator thing right here, it is very difficult when you are in the best of mental health. It is hard. Am I right, Dr. Latina? Y'all don't really know a lot about it, but there's lots of, ugly kind of comments behind the scenes, and it can be very, can be hurtful, and it can be stressful, and yeah. So it's also a lot of really good too. I've made a lot of good friends. I really value the time, us talking about these cases and stuff, because it's hard to find people like us. Did y'all know that? We're weird people. We're weird. We like these, extraordinary crimes. And there's a lot of people that are like, why? Why do you want to talk about death and mayhem? So, yeah. You didn't know you were weird, did you? Okay, but we're all weird together. We're all weird together. So yeah, I look at you guys as my friends, and it's nice to be able to talk to people about topics that you you both enjoy together. It's a good thing to be able to do that. So like everything else, it comes good with the bad, but whew, my goodness, there is some very unusual problems that creep up. It can be hurtful, absolutely hurtful. I just looked at poor Eugenia's channel. Oh my gosh, critters. I'm telling you, every time I look at her channel, I just say this prayer, that she's, at least getting some fluids, and it's very frightening. It's very frightening. But you notice how long her fingers are? I don't know. I think it'd be nice if Dr. Latina went over and looked. She's got some of those, it might be more. So I don't think we should be talking about her as a problem. I think she's just like us. It just so happens that her battle is very noticeable. But we all have battles. We all have things that we're trying to overcome. Some of it's just more hidden than others, or more acceptable, right? Can you agree that being 100 pounds overweight is more accepted in our society than being 100 pounds underweight? Right? When you see somebody that's 50, 80 pounds underweight, they're on death's door, and it makes people frightened, and they kind of recoil. But the majority of the population in the United States, America, is 50, 80 pounds overweight. So we all have problems, and both are bad for you. We all have problems. So may I weigh in, please? Yes, ma'am. You certainly can. Let me give you you know what? I'm sorry. I can't do it right now because I have all of my stuff to go to do a panel is all down on my other computer. I'm so sorry. I wanted to bring you up on panel. Maybe we could do that later tonight, Dr. Latina. Are you going to go live tonight? Or we could do it in here, whatever. You be the boss and tell me what you want to do. It's fine with me. I'll just have to go downstairs and get my stuff. There you go, hybrid. Yeah, it's very difficult. I will say this. I hope until more comes out, I hope that Buster is left alone. The pictures taken through his window at home were over the line. I didn't see pictures, but I agree. They do need to leave him alone. Try to put yourself in his shoes. What if you may be convinced that he knows something about Stephen Smith, but on the off chance that you're wrong, would you like to be trying to adjust to the death of your entire family, including your grandpa, and your dad is the laughing stock of the world and is now in prison the rest of your life? And now the whole world is saying, oh, look, Buster is going to be in prison too. You don't want to, he might be innocent, y'all. So just find some grace and the time will come. They're doing the autopsies. They're doing the investigation. We'll know sooner rather than later, right? We could do it at your house. Sounds good to me, Dr. Latina. I was 114 a couple of years ago. My granddaughter told me I needed to eat. Eat something, Granny. All right. So, it's almost 7 o'clock. So I had not planned on going live tonight. Let me, I tell you what, what about tomorrow afternoon, Dr. Latina? Like maybe at, like around 6. Will you be free, or do you have another live planned? Or he is suing the party that took the pictures. He should, in my opinion, Emily. Yeah, that was uncalled for. Absolutely. Piddling Bill's cooking. He loves to cook. I think it is hard not to worry. It is another cover up with the Stephen Smith case. I think that plays in, even though we don't know Buster was involved, people don't trust it. Exactly, Venus. And Perhaps that's why they put out the names of the other two kids. Well, they're not kids now, they're adults, but they put out the names of two of the others. Maybe they're trying to make people back off from Buster and say, hold on, there's a lot going on with this case. It's not just one person. So yeah, I thought it was interesting they released the names of the two. It kind of took me by surprise, actually. So we got Dr. Latina. She's down there singing. She's free, like free bird. All right. Yes, Zelda, exactly like Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, absolutely. Marfan syndrome. Okay, so Dr. Latina, like tomorrow, let's do tomorrow at 6 o'clock. It'll be 5. It'll be are you in South Carolina? I don't know what time zone you're in. We're 6 o'clock Texas time. We're Central.
Yeah.
Piddlin' Bill says we're Central time. He can certainly cook, Zelda. Good deal. Thank you, Emily. The Murdoch name is so allied for life now. Yeah, absolutely, Karen. Welcome, Karen. It's good to see you. So is tomorrow at 6, is that good? Or we could do a little later if you wanted to. It's up to you. I wish I could do it tonight. I just can't. I've got something that's going to be coming up in the next 30 minutes. Murdoch name is sullied forever. I will email link. Yes, ma'am. I sure will. So you're Eastern. So if we do it at 6, it would be 5 your time. Is that, did I say that? I did say it wrong. It'd be 7 your time, 6 my time. Is that okay? Thank you, Cinnamon, for sharing Bill's channel. Bill has a channel. He cooks, and he really cooks. And Critters cook. Put Critters link up there. She cooks some really good stuff, too. That shrimp was delicious. What?
The tomato pie.
Oh, Bill really loved the tomato pie, Critters. Oh, I thought you said that was her recipe.
It is her recipe.
And you did the shrimp and grits too. Was it grit shrimp and grits? Yeah, you made the shrimp and grits too. Awesome, Dr. Latina. I'm so excited. Yay. That's going to be great. Wonderful. All right. So we're going to go live tomorrow night. It'll be 7 Eastern and 6 Texas Central Time. Does that sound good? And maybe by then, well, there's an awful lot to talk about with Stephen Smith. And then, this thing that's going on with Kay and Larry Woodcock is just a travesty, in my opinion. I get that they have the right to do that. But the real question is, should they have done that? Or was it, I think it was misplaced, right? I think I just put a video up earlier talking about Archibald, and it seemed a little sadistic. It really wasn't necessary that he do this, because Kay and Larry were not around when the kids were dying. Kay and Larry are the ones that just said, where's JJ? Where's Tylee? And, Lori was already trying to keep the kids from her at that time. So it's not like keeping them out of the court would have changed like the testimony of what happened on the night they died. It would be different. Like, you'd want to keep Melanie Gibb out of the court because she was there as everything was going down. But Kay and Larry were not. So it was really, I thought it was petty and a little sadistic, actually. So the epoxy knife holder is cool. That's Bill's gift. Yeah, I got that for him as his gift. Waited a long time because it came from the Ukraine. I didn't know that. Listen, it just looked like I was just ordering from the United States or Canada or Europe, or just like you order on Etsy, right? And then after I paid for, I thought, well, it's a little pricey, but it was beautiful and it matched his knife set. And so then when I ordered it, after I ordered it, paid for it and everything, then I got a pop-up that said, this product is handmade in the Ukraine. They gave some area of Ukraine. And they said, because of political tensions, it may take a while to arrive. And I said, well, there you go. I think we waited maybe 2 months for it to get here. So, hi there, Empowering True Crime. I rarely catch any live, but I'm so happy I popped in. I'm glad you did too. Thank you. Really loving this thoughtful, intelligent conversation, especially the Stephen Smith recap and the mindful discussion on eating disorders. Thank you so much. I know I'm always a little hesitant to add something so unrelated to true crime because there's a lot of people like, why are you talking about, eating disorders? But it's kind of a teachable moment because a lot of people wouldn't understand the connection. And maybe that helps people be a little more gracious when you're watching Eugenia. I mean, obviously they're trying to do all the healthy things, right? So I thought it was a nice thing, them making the brownies together. I thought it was good. But thank you. That was a nice comment, Empowering. The whole Vallow case is contorted. Oh my gosh. It is wild. It is the wildest case. Maybe that would be interesting topic for tomorrow night, is to look at the day that Charles Vallow died, the interviews that she and Tylee did at the police station. Her body language is crazy. It's crazy. Maybe that's what that would be a good topic. They make the most beautiful artisanal items in the Ukraine. My daughters and I purchased a magnificent walking stick for my 92-year-old mother at Christmas, and she was thrilled. I'm going to tell you, Dr. Latina, this knife, is it called a knife rack? I don't even know what it's called.
Yeah, it's a knife rack.
Okay. This knife rack is stunning. It is beautiful. Of course, it's the wood, but then they use the epoxy, and it looks like turquoise, and it's got gold running through it, and then it's got the magnets, or inside of the epoxy, and so it holds these knives. And he's got these like chef knives that are like really heavy and big, and it is one of the best things I've ever purchased. It's gorgeous. I told him when it arrived, I said, oh my gosh, I wish I had a kitchen table made out of that. Look, it looked just like that. It's so pretty. So yes, the handmade stuff coming out of Ukraine, don't hesitate to purchase, because I was blown away when I saw how pretty it was. Lots of folk art. The interviews at the police station the day Charles was murdered. Yes, very interesting to watch and kind of dissect, because her body language and comfort was just very, the disconnect, right? I think that's what's so shocking about it, is this complete and total lack of empathy. Like there's nothing there. And then Tylee, on the other hand, she looked, it was incongruent. She didn't look like you would expect her to look in that traumatic situation, but she definitely wasn't relaxed. So that might be good to kind of go over tomorrow, Dr. Latina. But I'll send you a link, okay? And I'll see you tomorrow night at 7 Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. And I hope it will be Dr. Latina. I think I may have to buy another one, because I think both of my kids were blown away how gorgeous it is. So might have to buy. I might be like Oprah at Christmas. I might be like, and you get a knife rack, and you get a knife rack, and you get a knife rack. Everybody in my family will have a knife rack. I want one, Diamond Paw. Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. Yeah, really, really pretty. Okay, so we'll see y'all tomorrow night, 7 Eastern, 6 o'clock Central, and we are going to talk about that crazy lady in Idaho, and that would be crazy. Krayzee. All right. Just like the kind of thing that makes you go, oh my God, that is crazy. All right. Y'all are awesome. I am very appreciative for you to come in and talk with me and let me talk. And y'all, your support is wonderful. And I'm really, Kitty Dawg is saying thank you. I know. Maybe we'll put a picture up of you tomorrow night. Okay. You can be a part of the stream. You like that? You want to be on the stream? Kitty Dawg? You want to say hello to everybody? Say hello. Say hello. Now she won't perform because everybody's listening. Say hello. You can do it. She won't talk now that next time she's barking and I want her to quit, I'm going to ask her to speak. Speak. Ha! Good girl. She says yes. So Dr. Latina, Kitty Dawg will be with us for a few minutes tomorrow night. Then she's got to go outside because she's got a barking problem. All right. Thank y'all so much for being here. I appreciate it. And super chats and stickers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really do appreciate you. And I'll see y'all tomorrow night. I'm ready to talk about Lori Vallow. All right. See you then. Bye.